These men were all murdered, and no one can really explain why. They were killed in Alberta, mainly Edmonton, over the past 6 years, and they are all Somali-Canadians. More than 30 young men have been beaten, stabbed, and most often shot. Police have linked many of the deaths to drugs, gangs, and criminal activity. Some were killed by other young Somali-Canadians, yet others were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time or victims of mistaken identity. The most recent murders took place in 2011, where 4 men were killed in just over 6 months in Edmonton. Ahmed Ismail Sheikh was a 25-year-old from Toronto who reportedly moved to Edmonton to find work. He was found beaten to death in July 2011. The 22-year-old man who killed him has been charged with second-degree murder. Police say Sheikh knew his killer. A month earlier, Abdi Ali Mohammed was fatally shot in a downtown Edmonton alley. Police say Mohammed was not involved in a high-risk lifestyle and that it was a case of mistaken identity. The murder remains unsolved. 2 weeks before that, Yusuf Abdirahim was found beaten to death. He was only 20 years old. Police did not lay charges in his murder because they said the young man who killed him was acting in self-defense. Before them was Mohammed Jama. He was the first person killed in Edmonton in 2011, a year that shattered all homicide records for the city with 47 people left dead. Jama was shot to death on New Year's Day in a restaurant with at least 100 witnesses. But, like so many of the Somali-Canadian murders before him, the case remains unsolved. The deaths have left the community and family members scared and feeling alone in their struggle for answers and justice.
I feel like we're talking to the dead or something because there's no one, our voices are not being heard. My name is Aisha Mahmoud, and I am the sister of Abdul Qadir Mahmoud. He was killed December 2nd, 2008.
Abdul Qadir Mohammed was 23 years old when he died. His younger sister and brothers say he was their role model and that they all looked up to him. Growing up, he did well in school and helped his mother clean, cook, and take care of his siblings.
We used to live in London, Ontario, and my brother, he was like the father figure of this family. So Alberta has high minimum wage. So he went and found a job, a really good job, and he worked and he helped us. My mom's a single mother who raised 6 kids on her own.
He worked 3 jobs. He helped family. He's innocent, sweet human being.
Abdul was stripped, beaten, and shot to death in the early morning hours of December 2nd, 2008. His body was found in Grand Trunk Park in North Edmonton by a woman out walking her dog. A pair of shoes, a coat, and a baseball cap were found lying near his body.
Look at that. This is his jacket. This is his baseball hat. This one shoes. He wearing the shoes full of blood. That is the middle of the street.
Abandoned field.
Yeah.
Field,
there is no security. It look like there is no anyone charged. I don't believe in the people who did this, my son. I have here so many witnesses here. This is the first witness. Here.
They say we heard gunshots, we heard yelling.
They heard everything.
They can't call 911, they can't call anybody.
I couldn't believe.
The family says police found the car Abdul was in when he was killed. They also say police found the occupants of the vehicle. Yet, this has not been officially confirmed by the Edmonton police, who cannot reveal details of ongoing homicide investigations. No one was ever charged in the murder of Abdul Qadir Mohammed, and like so many others, it remains a mystery.
There hasn't been any cases that were solved. A lot of the newspapers, they would mention the people, their names, and how they were killed and how brutally they were stabbed and so forth, but then in the bottom they'll write down the case is still unsolved. I don't really see a lot of change being done. I see a lot of mothers, like especially my mom and other mothers, they call the detectives every day, send them so many letters, go to Edmonton, buy tickets, go to Edmonton every 2 months, go to the court dates, and it's just, I don't know, I just feel like we're pushing a wall.
The Edmonton police say they need more witnesses to come forward and provide information so they can solve these homicides. Of the 25 murders of Somali Canadians in Alberta, where all information has been publicly released, 6 of the murders have been solved and closed, while 19 of the deaths remain unsolved. Everyone is left wondering, why so many unsolved deaths? And why so many deaths in the first place? There are deeper issues below the surface, and as one community leader put it, the backstory is more tragic than the deaths. Stuart Baines has lived in Edmonton all his life. He's retired now, but spent more than 2 decades at the reference desk of the Edmonton Public Library. With his free time, he now runs a website called Deadmonton, where he collects information on all the murders in Edmonton from various media sources.
These 2 guys owned the property that was...
I was also aware that Edmonton had an unusual homicide rate, and I began to collect data. In 2005, I realized that there was a niche to be filled when Statistics Canada declared Edmonton to be the murder capital of Canada.
The city saw a 5-year homicide spike between 2004 to 2008, peaking at an all-time high in 2011. It's the first major upswing in killings since the late 1980s and has been tied to the growing economy, population, and rise in organized crime.
The easy answer is it's a boomtown economy. We have a transient population that's young. We're close to the oil patch. You got people moving in and out. There's also second-generation immigrants make up a large part of our population. And these things together, along with a frontier town mentality, seems to have made a mix for homicide for whatever reason.
It's true that more people were murdered in Edmonton than anywhere else in Canada in 2011. Toronto, the biggest city in Canada by far, ended the year with 45 killings. Edmonton, with a population of just over 1 million, had a record 47 murders. From coast to coast, no other city in Canada came close to the number of murders in Edmonton in 2011. Amal Issa sees many of the troubles in the Somali-Canadian community firsthand. She works with youth from low-income neighborhoods through the Somali-Canadian Education and Rural Development Organization.
I was raised in Edmonton, and in the past few years there's been like such a spike in the crime rates. I mean, this year alone, it's July and there's been, I think, 30 murders? 33. Yeah, something crazy like that. So, I mean, I think it's just a part of a larger trend of seeing like many young men move to Alberta by themselves to find work, and then getting caught up in a range of different things just because, you know, sometimes they can't find the jobs that they came out here looking for, and so they get involved in, you know, kind of criminal activities.
Hussein Warsami has watched the Somali-Canadian community in Alberta grow and change since he immigrated here in 1989. He's a professor at the University of Calgary and a respected local leader who helps and advises Somali-Canadian families.
Edmonton has a problem. And the problem probably is magnified by the fact that there is a boom in Northern Alberta in general, that the base of most of those who are working in Granbury or in Fort McMurray oil sands is basically Edmonton. They live in Edmonton, they go there, they work there for a few weeks, then come back to Edmonton to enjoy a little bit, and then go back. So there is a lot of stress and a lot of money that they can spend. And most of the communities, Somali community and all this, basically live in, I would say, the areas where the less economically advantaged groups are. So, and generally, that is where most of the crimes usually take place. So by being where most of the low-income groups are, and by being in Edmonton, which is basically now considered to be, in fact, some people call it Deadmonton, where all the killings are taking place, because of that, I think there are more deaths in Edmonton than in Calgary.
Edmonton is the worst place. It's a disaster place.
I'm scared for people's children now when they just come walk from school. They could even be in the middle of gunshots and they can be shot.
Our mom lost our children wherever where we come from, and we lost it in Edmonton area. We feel in Second World War live there.
The Edmonton police say the increase in murders has been troubling for everyone in the city, and it's hard to understand the motives. Superintendent Brad Ward has one theory.
What we have noticed is that the tendency to use weapons has occurred a lot more frequently, both edged weapons and firearms. You know, 30 years ago, if there was violence, it tended to be a fist fight. For whatever reason now, people are resorting to the use of weapons more frequently. And when that occurs, the seriousness of the assault is magnified. And as a consequence, we've seen that homicide rate increase quite markedly in 2011.
The brother of Abdul Qadir Mohammed wanted to say a few words on camera, yet his mother and sister insisted that his face not be shown because of fears over his safety.
Edmonton police have a reputation of being the worst police in Canada in regards of solving crimes. If I was chief of police, I would suspend them all of them. If not, that's me doing them a favor. I'm not firing them. These guys had the guys an hour later for my brother's murder. Like, say that you're a police officer and you pull over people, they're drenched in blood, matching vehicle, they're matching suspects, and you release them. That's not enough evidence. They want these guys to stay on the road, to eliminate the competition and eliminate all the drug dealers. There's no other way I can see it as right now. There's no other way that I can see that this happened. It's just ridiculous.
The Edmonton Police Service says they're doing everything they can to solve the homicides in the Somali-Canadian community. They meet regularly with local Somali-Canadian leaders and maintain strong relationships with local community groups, but still need witnesses to come forward and provide crucial information. These members of the Somali-Canadian Cultural Society of Edmonton are part of one of the community organizations that is working with the police. They have also been providing services and support to the Somali-Canadian community in Edmonton for over 20 years.
The community thinks that the police are super people, they can catch everybody overnight, they know all these things, see? And the police, they come to us and lecture to us about all these things, how the justice system works, Canadian system. And he said, everyone is innocent unless proven guilty. And it's not our job to prove them guilty. It's the job of the courts. Our job is to investigate and lead them to trials, to eventual conviction. See? So that's the rule in Canada. But the community doesn't understand that. They say, my child was killed, so that criminal has to be catch right away.
Edmonton's murder-free streak in 2011 lasted 3 hours at 3 a.m. on January 1st in a crowded Somali restaurant with about 100 people there. Mohammed Jama was shot and nobody saw anything. That caused the lead detective on the case to say, if these people don't want to talk to us, we're going to find other cases where people are willing to cooperate. And that set off a spark in the community because some Somali leaders have blamed the police for not doing enough. And the police say the Somalis aren't helping because they're not cooperating. So for the past few years, there's been a friction that builds with every homicide.
Lead detective Bill Clark told media he was frustrated after only one person in the crowded restaurant that day came forward to describe who shot Jama. Clark said if no one would help, police would move on to other cases. The comment outraged the Somali-Canadian community. Leaders wrote a letter to the police saying the threat to shut down the investigation made only a few hours after the incident is unfair because it basically says that we, as Canadian Somalis, do not deserve the services of the police service if we do not behave a certain way. Acting Police Chief David Corral later apologized for Clark's comments and had new posters put up around the community to encourage witnesses to come to the police. But Jama's murder remains unsolved, and some members of the Somali-Canadian community say talking to the police isn't that simple.